and salutations. Brandon from AgentandTraining.com and BlackCatCollie.com. Here to talk a little bit about outsiders and what's called the group monkey dance. This has been on my mind because this past week marked the anniversary of the death of Sophie Lancaster. She died August 24th, 2007. 2 weeks earlier, she and her boyfriend had been very, very badly beaten by a group of thugs, primarily because Sophie and her boyfriend were Goths and were dressed in Gothic-style fashion. She was beaten so bad, including multiple blows to the head, she entered a coma and within 2 weeks was dead at the age of 20. There's a lot of information about her online. I strongly suggest, if you're interested, that you Google the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, which is based in her native UK and deals with issues of bullying and basically trying to prevent things like what happened to Sophie from happening to other people. But the attack on Sophie is a good example of what is called the group monkey dance. Now, it's important to talk about what the monkey dance is and how the group monkey dance is different from sort of the regular monkey dance. People don't like to think about this, but a lot of violence actually has a social component. You may think, oh, violence is by its very nature antisocial, and yes, sometimes it is, and yeah, if you're from a certain privileged mentality, that might be how you think. But to a lot of people, violence is a way to achieve social gains. Perfect example would be in the individual monkey dance, the one-on-one monkey dance. This is probably the type of violence most commonly experienced by men, though it does happen with women. Example of the solo monkey dance: guy says to one guy, "Hey, what are you looking at?" Other guy says, "Your ugly face." The other guy says, "What?" And they're like, "Oh, are you deaf as well as ugly?" And blah, 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 blah. And a fight ensues. The thing was, the person who starts it by saying, "Hey, what are you looking at?" often their goal isn't violence per se, it's status. They want to achieve higher social status by intimidating another human being, in this case, another man. In this kind of one-on-one monkey dance situation, it is possible to diffuse it by essentially giving the aggressor what they want, which is status. You do that by not being a tough guy, by backing down, by being apologetic. So if someone says, "Hey, what are you looking at?" you don't say, "Hey." You respond with sort of like, "Hey man, was I staring? I am so sorry. I had one of those days. Have you ever had one of those days?" You're flipping it around, you're asking them a question, you're kind of giving them status. Similarly, if someone says to you, you walk into a bar and they say, "Hey, I don't like the look of your face. Get out of here or I'm going to kick your ass." Then you should leave because they're going to kick your ass. And again, it's mostly a status thing. That's the primary reason they're doing this. It's social. It's kind of like, Clausewitz's line about war, politics by other means. Violence can be social in the sense that they're trying to achieve status by other means. The group monkey dance is a lot more dangerous and a lot more complicated because there's usually a couple of things going on. For one, there's an attempt to solidify group status. In terms of, say you have 4 young men, they are trying to solidify their status as a group, as whatever they are, as straight men, as white men, as, whatever you want to put them, as gang members. That's what they're trying to achieve. They're trying to solidify that by finding someone who is outside of the group, ganging up on them and punishing them for not being in that group. That ties to the other aspect of group monkey dance, which is punishing somebody for being who they are, for being different. This is something that outsiders deal with and have to always be, concerned about, because again, it is one of the worst forms of violence. When I say outsiders, I mean it can be hippies, goths, punks, skaters, people of different religions, people of minority racial status. Of course, the LGBTQ community clearly is at risk in this kind of thing. And I should note that when I say outsiders or outside of society, that is not a value judgment coming from me. That is just sort of an observation of where they are in the general social milieu. Personally, I'm all for outsiders. I'm all for sticking out, let your freak flag fly is pretty much the way I look at things. So when you are in one of these situations, like Sophie Lancaster was, in which she was a Goth, a bunch of young men probably went to solidify their bonds of manliness or brotherhood or whatever, and wanted to say, hey, we're normal, you're not, so we're going to crush your skull by basically stepping on it repeatedly and kicking you in the head. Queer bashing, clear-cut, perfect example of this. I should just say, even though I'm not gay, I'm just a very pro-queer, really fabulous straight guy. I was almost, queer bashed. I've been accidentally locked myself out of my apartment on New Year's Eve back when I was in my early 20s. I had nothing to do but kind of wander around the neighborhood. This was before cell phones. I couldn't call anybody or do anything. And I was walking around, a bunch of drunken military guys were across the street, and they started, yelling, look at the fag over there, let's go kick his fucking ass. And they started to chase after me. I had several things in my advantage. For one, I was sober, they were drunk. Two, I'm actually a pretty fast sprinter. And three, it was my neighborhood. It's where I lived and worked and spent most of my time. I knew the area like the back of my hand. So I was able to zip around and avoid them. Which comes to a question a lot of people ask, if confronted with the group monkey dance, if you've been targeted, how do you get away? And the best alternative is to do exactly what I did, run. One of the best martial arts in the world is run fu. Get the hell out of there. That's why it's know your territory. Always be looking around. Look for places to run to, escape routes. Think in terms of, escape and evasion techniques. If you're a jogger, work in sprints sometime. If you're not a jogger, work in sprints into your workouts, because that could save your life sometime. So running is the best alternative. Second best is to somehow talk your way out of it, maybe using humor. This is a very hard thing to do, and I don't know how often it actually even works. Because, again, it's a complicated situation. They have decided they are going to punish you for being what you are, and it's very hard to get out of that. I actually remember way back when hearing an interview with Gillette of Penn and Teller. And Penn Gillette is lifelong teetotaler, never did drugs, never drank. And he talked about being at a bar and he ordered a milkshake. Some rough biker types didn't really care for that, found it funny, and started harassing him. It started to escalate. He knew he was in trouble. They had him boxed in. He couldn't get away. So he took his milkshake and poured it on his own head and then challenged him to a fight. The bikers backed off. They thought, this guy is insane. I don't want to mess with him. So they backed off, and Penn Gillette was there to leave messy from the milkshake, but that's better than being messy from your own blood. Would that work for everybody in every situation? It's very tricky. It's very hard. Again, I cannot stress to you how bad of a situation that is. So the third and probably worst option is violence, to fight back. There's a saying that violence is usually not the best answer, but when it is, it's the only answer, and this is a perfect example of that. But if you're dealing with multiple attackers, no matter what you see in movies and everything, it's not an easy situation to deal with. So how do you deal with 2, 3, 4 people who are intent on beating the crap out of you, and you can't run away and you can't talk your way out of it? There's a couple of different approaches that I'm going to talk about. One is sort of the more commonly accepted, I guess you could say, conventional wisdom approach. And when I say conventional wisdom, I don't mean that in a pejorative way. I mean, it's a conventional wisdom because it has some truth to it. And that is taking down the leader first with a show of extraordinary violence. Basically, you're going to have a few different people who are getting in your face, but there's could probably be one person who's like the spokesperson, the leader, the one who's causing the most trouble. The theory is, and there's again some validity to it, prisoners and ex-cons swear by this, is you take that person out, the leader, quickly and ruthlessly with a show of violence so intense that the other people in the group will just shy away. They'll back away. They won't want to deal with it. That can be problematic. I mean, you really have to tap into something very aggressive in yourself. Let me take you a little while to describe an alternate way of looking at that and another approach to getting out of this situation, which I think has some merit. And this is actually an approach that Bert Richardson of Jeet Kune Do Unlimited, who I've trained with for many years, and I'm proud to call both a friend and an instructor, that he advocates and that he has seen used firsthand growing up in and around the area around California, LA. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of a modeling show, and I don't mean models as in I'm going to walk in a catwalk, and I take like little miniatures used in wargaming to illustrate this tactic. So, notice Tolkien. Got this little board here. Say you are a hobbit. You have just left the Prancing Pony in Bree after having several beers. You get out, as you leave, you're instantly harassed by a troll, an orc, and a Balrog. So, the Balrog is obviously the leader. Let's make this a little simpler here. So the Balrog is the leader. You know, a fallen Maya, a servant of the Darkfire. You are just this little hobbit. So, according to one theory, you take on the Balrog. Hard to do, but maybe you have a magical sword or something that can do it. Maybe Gandalf has loaned you the access to the secret fire, and you can fight back. But, how is a little orc here? So the Balrog's all talking tough. The cave troll is all, yeah, you tell him, I hate the hobbits. Maybe the orc here is just kind of hanging back, not sure what to do. Again, not a common thing, uncommon thing. If you have 3 or 4 people ganging up on one person, maybe not all of them are in it. Maybe one guy's hanging back to see. Maybe he's waiting to see, like, oh, I don't really want to get hurt. Maybe I don't know how this is going to play out. So I think they're just kind of hanging back here. So, again, assuming there's some wall here, you can't run, you're blocked in. Instead of going for the leader and attacking the Balrog, you rush the orc and run past. The theory being, the orc is not going to expect that. The orc is hanging back. The orc is less prepared. The orc is less primed for violence than the Balrog and the troll. So basically, you don't have to explode with a ton of violence. This you can just run by, perhaps body check them, slam them to the ground. If you're a grappler, maybe judoka or wrestler, pick them up, slam them to the ground, keep on running. Muay Thai, run to a flying elbow, clock them in the face, and they go down, keep on running. But the idea is basically this person who is less committed, less aggressive, less of a threat, you can actually just get by, keep on running, and escape danger. Now, in all of these situations and all of these scenarios I've discussed for escaping the group monkey dance, for the parts involving violence, for using force, you're going to notice something problematic, perhaps, if you're thinking about it from a legal standpoint, which is worthwhile doing. And that is, you are initiating force. You are becoming the aggressor. You are using violence first. And that's a tricky thing. But here's the sad reality. If, say, 3 people are confronting you, and they're obviously intent on hurting you, if you wait till they actually start hurting you, till 3 people are ganging up on you, the chances of you extricating it, without taking serious injuries or even dying are slim. And once they are on top of you, it's going to be very, very hard to get out. That's just a fact. So you're left with the option of striking first. They say that, in some karate schools say, oh, there are no first strikes in karate. No. I don't practice karate. But the thing is, if you do that, you have to be able to justify what you did. And you have to convince, basically the penal system and the legal system that what you did was justified. Now, I think this is easier if you take the approach of running past the less committed attacker, knocking them to the ground, body checking, doing whatever, getting past them and running. Because you can do it without actually causing serious injury. As opposed to if you have to go and attack the leader, you are going to have to cause serious injury. I'm not saying, keep in mind, I'm saying injury, not just hurting them. I'm talking injuring them, causing enough pain that they're going to stay down, not going to be able to get up, and you can get away, and the other people are terrified. If you cause that level of destruction on another human being without them having thrown the first, punch or whatever, that's just going to be very difficult for you to talk about and to defend in court. And a lot of people are going to shrug it off like, oh, well, I'd rather be, judged by 12 than carried by 6. Yes, that is true. But, don't just be flippant about the legal process. People have their lives, virtually destroyed defending themselves in court in self-defense cases. I mean, that's just, whether you like it or not, that's just a fact of it. And that's something you have to consider in these types of situations. What can you defend? How can you defend yourself, not only in that situation, but in court? Now, obviously, this is not something you can think about at the time. If someone is judging around, if you're surrounded by a bunch of people and they're like, they're going to kick your ass, you can't say, let me weigh the legal benefits of blah, blah, blah. No, you're not going to have time to do that. You're going to have to think about this kind of thing beforehand. Best thing to do, practice, get some friends together, put on some safety gear, practice different scenarios. But different scenarios are going to also be different. You're going to have to gauge based on what is happening. People are complicated. The world is complicated. The types of situations you could be in are complicated. I mean, it depends on all kinds of factors. I can't tell you which option is best. Running is best, that I can tell you. Talking your way out of it is best, that I can tell you. Avoiding the situation altogether is best, that I can tell you. But if you have to use violence, I can't really tell you, oh, take out the leader, that's absolutely the best way. Or, oh, go for the guy off on the side, that's absolutely the best way. Because it really depends on what the situation is. And really all you can do is think, practice, work on techniques, figure out what works for you. And that's all I can really tell you. So really the thing to think about here, though, is if you are an outsider in society, just be aware that you face a much greater threat than other people. And it's not a threat you can usually talk your way out of. So the main thing is, whenever possible, to just avoid situations as best as you can. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, leave. If a situation feels uncomfortable, get out of there. That's really all I can say. Is just, be careful, be aware and take care of each other. And again, this whole post came about from the anniversary of Sophie Lancaster's death. Again, highly recommend if you get a chance to go do a little bit of reading, just so you can know the kinds of things that people suffer and die from being different than other people, and that's wrong and that's tragic, but it's the reality of the world we live in. So I want to talk a little bit about specific techniques that you can use if you are faced with a group monkey dance situation and have to resort to violence. Just want to state that these are just sort of ideas. I'm not going to show you enough that you can go out and instantly defend yourself just using, watching a YouTube video clip. These are some ideas and concepts that you can use if you already have some training, you can practice them and add them to your repertoire, or seek out some training. And these are purely from my background. I'm not going to, for example, show you any judo takedowns, which are incredibly effective, because I don't really have much judo training. So let's look at the first way of dealing with the situation, which is to take out the leader by basically exploding with intense violence. A really super fast way of dealing with it. And by the way, before I go on, I'm not addressing the use of weapons to defend yourself in this video. That's very complicated. It opens up a whole different can of worms and it would require a separate video. So I'm not going to show you about using knives or guns or anything like that to defend yourself. This is purely empty hand, which is not optimal, but that's what I'm going to talk about. So Gillette actually provides a very good way of quickly neutralizing a threat. And basically it goes from what's considered called a dive entry. You dive towards the person's face, aiming to hit their cheeks, basically drive their cheekbones, smash them if possible. Cheekbones are actually pretty fragile. In this kind of situation, you see actually sumo wrestlers use that to unbalance people. You dive in, keeping your head tucked in to protect it. Get in here, slide your thumbs into the eyes. This is a lot more effective than things where you're like trying to eye gouge, because people instinctively defend against the eyes and they defend their eyes. And it's certainly better than doing that weird key thing where you try to put the keys here and poke them. That's very hard to pull off. Smashing the thumbs will just slide into the eyes very easily. Keep on pushing. Go grab the back of their head and a good neck clench. Keep in mind the neck clench isn't really a neck clench. You don't want to be down here, you're going to be up here. You're going to be up by that bony part of the skull here, right behind the ears. Thrust them down. From here, throw knees. And notice when I say throw knees, I make a little distance here. I'm not doing the, I'm not trying out for a chorus line. One singular sensation. I am throwing my knees with my hips. Your knee is a spear. You're thrusting into them using your entire body. Kettlebells are great for this, for training the body. Kettlebell swings, they're doing that kind of motion, really lends itself to throwing the knees. Over here, dive in, throw some knees, slam them to the ground, and kick them and run. Good quick way of dealing with the lead opponent. So how about for the guy off to the side? Again, you don't really have to do that much. You could probably just run past and check them, body check them. Wave in Gillette, a lot of times we do that. You step off partially to one side. So if I'm looking at my opponent, I'm going to step off to one side. And then with this shoulder, I'm going to act as if I'm knocking down a door while thrusting my leg this way. Let me see if I can step back, get a little bit more leg here. So from this position, staring at my opponent, step, it's called the female triangle in Kali, step to one side, and then drive my shoulder the other way. That's a good way. Just you're going to balance them. You can also, from that position, go in, grab a body lock, and do some pretty easy takedowns, which I really can't demonstrate right now because I don't have anybody to take down. Also, you can just go by and do an elbow. Just run past, boom. Elbows are very fast, very dangerous. It's important with the elbow that you actually hit with the little bony part here. You don't want to hit with the fleshy part. That doesn't do as much. So what you want to do is you want to keep your elbow horizontal across your body and kind of tuck your hand in. It's almost like you're punching your shoulder. And that way, you're going to really hit with the bone. That is what is going to get your knockout. Especially right here, this can crack pretty easily, mess up the vision. Go across here to the eyebrow, starts bleeding. They can't see because of the blood. If you're big enough and strong enough, you can probably just do kind of a big running clothesline, take someone down, throw them to the ground, and go. It doesn't have to be complicated. Again, these are just a few possibilities, things to crack. The best way to test these kind of things is to practice with resistance, practice against people who don't just let you do the technique. You don't want to practice with someone who okay, I'm going to body check you, and you go like this and you barely touch them and go, ah, and they fly off to the side. You don't want that. You don't want someone who, as soon as you get this clench and it's all sloppy and you barely hold it, you pull them down and you fall like that. You want someone who, as soon as you get the clench, start to work their way up. You need to feel that resistance. Because otherwise, if they're just, going with you, that's fine for the first few times you practice it, but you need to keep on building up the resistance so you can feel it. You can feel how it works. If you try to do a takedown, have the person not let you take them down. It seems like a common sense thing, but a lot of people don't do that. While you're training with resistance, again, to quote my own instructor, Bern Richardson, the best way to learn how to fight is to fight against somebody who's fighting back.